Poor girl with her baby helps crying boy. Not knowing his CEO dad was watching her life. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The late afternoon sun poured through the glass windows of a small park cafe, washing everything in a golden hue. Near the playground, a young woman sat on a wooden bench, rocking a stroller with one hand while sorting through a pile of grocery receipts with the other. Her name was Lily Sanders, 26 years old, a single mother trying to make each day stretch far beyond her paycheck. Her baby, Maya, was asleep, tiny fingers curled around a threadbare stuffed bunny. Across the path, a boy around 5 years old sat alone near the sandbox, tears streaking down his dusty cheeks. His small red ball had rolled into the bushes, and now he sat hugging his knees, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Parents nearby glanced at him, then looked away. Lily hesitated for a moment, glancing at her stroller. No one else seemed to notice the child. Her instinct told her to stay out of trouble, but something deeper, something maternal, would not let her. She stood, adjusted the blanket over Maya, and walked toward the boy. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said softly, crouching down. "Are you hurt?" The boy sniffled and shook his head. "My ball is gone. It rolled away." Lily smiled gently. "Then we can find it together, right?" She brushed aside the bushes, her hands getting scratched by the thorns, until she spotted the red ball wedged under a bench. She wiped the dirt off with her sleeve and handed it back. The boy's face lit up. "Thank you. You are welcome," she said, and her smile reached her tired eyes. "Where is your mom or dad?" "Dad is talking on the phone," the boy answered, pointing toward a man standing several yards away near the parking lot. The man's back was turned, phone pressed to his ear, his posture sharp and impatient. Lily followed the boy's gaze for a second, but thought nothing more of it. She only saw another busy parent. "Do you want to sit here until he comes back?" she asked, and the boy nodded. Lily tore a napkin from her small lunch bag and wiped his face. There we go, brave again. Behind them, near the cafe entrance, the man in the tailored charcoal suit had ended his call. He turned, searching for his son, and froze at the sight before him. His little boy was laughing softly now, holding the hand of a woman who looked like life had not been kind, but had not taken her kindness away. The man was Alexander Reed, chief executive officer of one of the city's largest tech companies, a man used to control, to results, to efficiency. Yet what he felt in that moment was something he could not quantify on a spreadsheet. Watching her dabbing at his son's face with gentle care stirred something long dormant inside him. The noise of the world dimmed, replaced by a warmth he had not felt in years. The boy spotted him and waved. "Dad!" Lily turned, startled, realizing at once who he was. The crisp suit, the polished car behind him, he was not just any parent. Their eyes met briefly, and Alexander gave a nod of gratitude. Lily returned a polite smile, unaware that this small act of kindness had already changed the course of her life. Alexander stood silently for a moment, the autumn wind rustling through the trees as he watched the woman gather her baby's blanket and smile at his son one last time. "Thank you for helping him," he said, walking closer. His voice was deep but calm, carrying that quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Lily straightened up quickly, adjusting the strap of her worn canvas bag. "It was nothing," she replied softly. "He just needed someone to listen." Alexander looked at her properly, then her hair pulled into a simple ponytail, the faint tiredness in her eyes, and the soft way she held her sleeping baby as if shielding her from the world. "I am glad you were here," he said. The boy tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, she found my ball." Alexander smiled faintly and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Then we both owe her a thank you." "You already said that," the boy replied innocently, earning a small laugh from Lily. For a brief second, the sound lightened something inside Alexander that had been weighed down for years. "May I at least know your name?" he asked. "Lily," she said. "Lily Sanders." "Thank you, Miss Sanders," he replied, extending his hand. Her grip was light, hesitant. His palm was warm but firm, a contrast to her calloused fingers that told stories of long days and quiet endurance. He wanted to ask more where she lived, what she did, but the words felt intrusive. She looked like someone who carried her dignity carefully. Like a fragile flame, she refused to let the wind extinguish. As she turned to leave, her baby stirred and whimpered softly. "Shh, Maya," Lily whispered, rocking the stroller gently. "Almost home." The sound of the baby's name made Alexander's gaze linger. "Beautiful name," he said. "She looks peaceful. When she sleeps, yes." Lily smiled faintly. "When she is awake, she rules my world." Alexander chuckled quietly. "I understand that feeling." He watched her walk away, the stroller wheels rattling slightly on the uneven path, her figure fading under the amber light of the setting Sunday. His son tugged his sleeve again. "Dad, can we invite her to my birthday?" Alexander blinked, caught off guard. "Your birthday?" "Yes, next week. You said I can choose one person to invite besides my school friends." The boy's innocent tone carried no weight of class or difference. To him, kindness was enough of a reason. Alexander knelt beside him. "We will see," he said, ruffling his hair. Yet that night, her face would not leave his thoughts. He sat in his penthouse study, city lights glittering below, his son asleep in the next room. The glow of his computer screen reflected numbers, contracts, decisions, yet all he could see was the way that woman had bent to comfort his crying child. There had been no agenda in her eyes, no fear of his wealth, no awareness of who he was. She had simply cared. His assistant's voice interrupted through the intercom. "Sir, the board documents are ready for your review. Leave them on the desk," he said absently. His mind was elsewhere, wondering what kind of life forced a young mother to sit in a park with grocery receipts and a stroller that squeaked with every push. The next morning, as he dropped his son at school, Alexander caught a glimpse of her again across the street. She was carrying a tray of coffee cups and a paper bag of sandwiches, her hair loose now, strands catching the morning breeze. She entered a small bakery with a "Help Wanted" sign taped crookedly on the window. The realization hit him she worked there. For reasons he could not explain, he found himself slowing his car, watching as she balanced the tray with one hand, while greeting customers with the same gentle patience he had seen in the park. Later that day, during a lunch meeting, his mind drifted again. His business partner was discussing numbers, but Alexander found himself thinking about Lily's quiet strength. She had looked tired, yes, but not defeated. He admired that. That night, when he tucked his son into bed, the boy asked again, "Did you invite her?" Alexander smiled faintly. "Not yet." The boy frowned sleepily. "But she was nice." "Yes," Alexander said softly, looking out the window at the city lights. "She was." And in that stillness, a decision began forming in his mind, one that had nothing to do with business or logic, but everything to do with the simple act of kindness that had reminded him he was still human. The next morning began like any other for Lily. The alarm on her cracked phone buzzed at 6:30, and she woke with the instinct of someone used to racing time itself. Her small apartment above the bakery was quiet except for the gentle breathing of baby Maya in the crib beside her bed. She prepared a bottle, humming softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of traffic below. After feeding Maya, she slipped into her faded blue uniform and tied her apron, checking the small mirror on the wall. There were dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled anyway. Today was payday, which meant the rent would not be late, at least for now. Downstairs, the smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee filled the air. The bakery was already busy with morning customers, most of them regulars from nearby offices. Lily moved quickly behind the counter, balancing orders with practiced grace. "Good morning, Miss Sanders," said Mr. Taylor, her boss, a kind man in his 50s who owned the place with his wife. "Morning rush looks heavy today." "That is all right," she said with a smile. "Busy means good." By 8:30, the line stretched to the door. She poured coffee, served croissants, and offered tired office workers, a smile that felt genuine despite her exhaustion. Across the street, unseen by her, a familiar black sedan had parked near the corner. Alexander sat inside, half hidden behind tinted windows, watching the small bakery sign sway gently in the breeze. He told himself he was just stopping by on his way to a meeting, but the truth was harder to admit. He wanted to see her again, to confirm that the quiet grace he had witnessed in the park was not a momentary illusion. Through the glass, he saw her laughing softly as she handed a cup of coffee to an elderly woman, her movements calm and unhurried even amid the chaos. There was something grounding about her, something real in a world of constant pretense. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "Sir, your meeting starts in 20 minutes. He hesitated before typing back. "Reschedule." The word surprised even him. When the rush ended, Lily finally took a short break, stepping outside with a cup of coffee for herself. The air smelled of rain. She closed her eyes for a second, letting the cool breeze touch her face. "You again," a voice said gently, and her eyes opened to see Alexander standing a few steps away, holding a paper bag from the bakery. "I promise I am not following you," he added quickly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I was just nearby." Lily blinked, caught between surprise and disbelief. "You found the best bakery in town," she said lightly. "That is impressive." "I had good luck," he replied. "Or maybe fate." She laughed softly. "Maybe." He gestured toward the bench outside the shop. "May I join you?" She nodded, and for a few moments they sat quietly, sipping their coffee while watching people hurry past on the wet sidewalk. "Do you always work this hard?" he asked finally. "Work is not the hard part," she said, her gaze distant. "Worrying is." He studied her face, noting the quiet strength beneath her gentleness. "Your daughter," he asked carefully, "is she doing well?" "She is perfect," Lily said softly. "She has more courage than I do, I think." Her eyes brightened when she spoke of Maya, and it made something inside Alexander ache. "That is a beautiful thing to say." "It is true," she replied. "When I think I cannot go another day, I just look at her. She reminds me why I must." The sincerity in her tone made the noise of the street fade. For a man who spent his life surrounded by polished boardrooms and calculated conversations, her honesty felt like oxygen. "You deserve some help," he said finally. "If there is anything I can do." She shook her head quickly. "Please do not. I am fine, really." "I do not doubt that," he said gently. "But everyone needs a little help sometimes." She smiled, though her eyes carried both gratitude and caution. "Thank you, but I would rather earn what I get. It keeps me proud." He nodded, deeply respecting that answer. As she stood to go back inside, Maya's soft cry echoed faintly from the baby monitor clipped to her apron. Lily excused herself, disappearing through the door. Alexander remained on the bench for a long moment, holding his untouched coffee. The rain began to fall lightly, yet he barely felt it. For the first time in years, he was thinking not about profits or deadlines, but about a woman and her child, and the quiet dignity that made them unforgettable. The rain had turned into a steady drizzle by the time Alexander returned to his car. Drops of water streaked the windshield as he sat there in silence, watching the small bakery window glow with warm yellow light. Inside, Lily moved gracefully from table to table, a towel over her shoulder, helping customers and managing the register, while gently bouncing her baby in one arm. Her world was small, humble, and yet it pulsed with a quiet strength he had long forgotten existed. When his phone rang, he almost ignored it. "Sir, the investors' dinner has been moved to tonight," his assistant reminded him. 7 o'clock at the Horizon Club. "Cancel my attendance," Alexander said, his tone even. "Tell them something came up." He ended the call before she could protest. That evening, Lily finally closed the bakery, locking the glass door and stepping out into the cool night. The neon signs reflected on the wet pavement as she pushed the stroller toward the bus stop. Maya was half asleep, her tiny hands clutching the bunny toy. A car engine hummed nearby. When the sleek black sedan stopped beside her, she tensed instinctively. The window rolled down, revealing Alexander behind the wheel. "You will miss the last bus," he said. "Let me give you a ride." She hesitated. "That is kind, but I do not want to trouble you." "It is no trouble," he said. "It is raining, and your daughter should not be out here in this weather." There was something in his voice steady, sincere, that eased her concern. After a brief pause, she nodded. "All right. Thank you." He stepped out quickly, helping her fold the stroller and place it gently in the trunk. Inside the car, the soft hum of the heater filled the silence. Lily kept her hands folded in her lap, unsure how to act in the presence of someone who clearly belonged to a different world. "You do not have to feel nervous," Alexander said after a moment, sensing her discomfort. "I promise I do not bite." His attempt at humor made her laugh softly. "It is not that," she said. "I am just not used to being around people like you." "People like me?" he asked, glancing at her with curiosity. "The kind who have options," she replied simply. "For people like me, life is mostly about trying to survive another week." Her honesty stung him more than he expected. He thought of the boardrooms filled with people pretending to care, of the sterile dinners and fake smiles. None of it had felt as real as the words she just spoke. "Where to?" he asked gently. "Elm Street Apartments, near the park," she said. He knew that area. Old buildings, low rent, the kind of place where dreams went to rest. As they drove, the city lights blurred against the rain-streaked windows. Maya stirred in her seat, and Lily reached back to tuck the blanket around her daughter. The small, instinctive motion filled the car with warmth. When they reached her building, she turned to him. "Thank you for the ride, and for caring." "You are welcome," he said. "Would you mind if I checked on you and your daughter sometime, just to see how you are doing?" She hesitated, clearly unsure of his intentions. "You do not owe me anything," she said softly. "You have already done more than enough." "I know," he replied, "but sometimes people appear in our lives for a reason." Her eyes softened, and she gave a small nod. "Maybe," she whispered. As she stepped out of the car, rain falling lightly on her shoulders, he watched her disappear through the entrance of the old apartment building. Something about that moment lingered, the simplicity of it, the quiet decency in her refusal to take advantage of his offer. Back home, he stood by the window of his penthouse, looking at the skyline that stretched endlessly before him. The lights below shimmered like constellations, yet he had never felt more aware of the distance between his world and hers. Meanwhile, Lily tucked Maya into the crib and sat by the small window, listening to the soft rhythm of the rain. She did not know why a man like him had appeared in her life, but part of her hoped that maybe, just maybe, this meeting was not an accident at all. The next few days unfolded quietly, yet both Lily and Alexander felt the invisible thread between their worlds tightening. At the bakery, Lily's life resumed its familiar rhythm. The early morning rush, the laughter of regular customers, the scent of fresh bread filling the air, it all went on as usual. But deep down, she caught herself thinking about that car ride. The way Alexander had spoken to her with respect, without pity. She had met many kinds of men, some who looked at her with judgment, others with false charm, but none had looked at her the way he did, like he truly saw her. One morning, while she wiped down the counter, the bell above the bakery door chimed. She turned and froze. Alexander stood there, dressed more casually than she had ever seen him. Dark jeans, a grey sweater, his usual polish softened by something more human. He smiled, holding a bouquet of small white daisies. "Good morning," he said. "I hope I am not interrupting." "Not at all," she replied, her voice slightly flustered. "What brings you here?" "My son," he said simply. "He wanted to thank you properly." From behind him peeked the same little boy from the park, holding a small box wrapped with colorful paper. "Hi, Miss Lily," he said shyly. "These are cookies I made with Dad. Thank you for helping me that day." Lily's heart melted. She knelt to his level. "You made these yourself?" "I stirred the chocolate chips," the boy said proudly. "Dad burned the first batch." Alexander chuckled softly. "That is true." The exchange made Lily laugh, a genuine sound that filled the small bakery with warmth. "That is very sweet of you both," she said. "Would you like something to drink?" "2 hot chocolates," the boy answered quickly before his father could speak. "One with extra marshmallows, please." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "I suppose that is a yes." Lily made their drinks herself, the creamy cocoa steaming gently in white mugs. She set them down at a corner table, where Alexander and his son sat side by side. Watching them together stirred something unexpected in her. The way the powerful CEO listened attentively to his child, letting him talk about school and his favorite cartoons, was a sight she did not imagine she would see. It made him seem real, approachable, even kind. When the boy excused himself to look at the display of pastries, Alexander turned to her. "You are good with children," he said quietly. "I saw that even before I knew your name." "I suppose it just comes with being a mother," she replied. "You learn patience whether you want to or not. And courage," he added, his voice lower now. "It takes courage to do what you do alone." She looked down, slightly embarrassed. "You make it sound like something noble. It is just survival." "Maybe," he said, "but survival can be noble." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the bakery, the clatter of cups, and the sound of rain against the window became the background to something unspoken between them. When his son returned with a pastry in hand, Alexander smiled. "We should go. Someone has a soccer practice to attend." The boy groaned. making Lily laugh again. "Thank you for the cocoa," he said. "It was the best ever." "You are welcome, sweetheart," she replied. As they left, Alexander turned back briefly. "I meant what I said," he told her. "You have strength that most people would envy. And you have kindness that most people would not expect," she replied before she could stop herself. His smile deepened just slightly. Then he and his son stepped into the rain, leaving Lily standing by the counter, her heart unexpectedly lighter. Later that night, after closing the bakery, Lily found a small envelope tucked beneath one of the mugs they had used. Inside was a business card with his name, Alexander Reed, and a handwritten note. "If you ever need help, no questions asked." She stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to smile or cry. She placed the card in her pocket, unaware that this simple gesture would soon change everything about her future. That night, Lily sat at her small kitchen table long after Maya had fallen asleep, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. The business card lay in front of her, its elegant black letters standing out against the pale wood. Alexander Reed. She traced the embossed name with her fingertip, still unsure what to make of it. He had been nothing but kind, but kindness from men like him usually came with invisible strings. Still, something about him felt different, genuine, perhaps even protective. She tucked the card into a small tin box where she kept sentimental things: a hospital bracelet from Maya's birth, a photo of her parents, a folded note from a friend she had lost touch with. It did not feel like a business card. It felt like a reminder that someone in the world still saw her. The next morning brought a sharp change in her routine. When she arrived at the bakery, Mr. Taylor looked anxious. "Lily, we need to talk," he said quietly. Her stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "We are closing early today. The landlord is raising the rent again, and we cannot afford to stay open past this month." Lily felt the words hit her like a weight. "But what about our jobs?" "We will give everyone a small severance," he said. "I am so sorry, Lily. You have been wonderful here." She forced a small smile, though panic rippled beneath the surface. "I understand," she said softly. "Thank you for telling me." When she stepped outside, the morning sun felt colder than usual. She sat on the bench near the corner, holding her apron in her lap, trying to breathe past the sudden fear. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Formula for Maya, groceries, bus fare, all of it loomed over her like storm clouds. For the first time in months, tears threatened, but she did not cry. She looked down at the stroller, at her daughter's tiny face, and whispered, "We will be okay." Across town, Alexander sat in a boardroom, but his thoughts were miles away. He had been distracted all morning, replaying Lily's smile, her quiet strength. When his assistant entered with a tablet, he barely looked up. "Sir, the community investment proposal you mentioned last week, it is ready for review," she said. "A new outreach program for local small businesses." He glanced at the documents briefly before setting them aside. "Schedule a site visit tomorrow," he said. "I want to see which neighborhoods need the most help." The next afternoon, his car turned onto Elm Street. The bakery sign caught his eye immediately, but this time it was dark. The closed notice taped to the glass made him frown. As he stepped out, he saw Lily inside, packing boxes with slow movements. She looked up, startled when she saw him through the window. A moment later, he was standing at the door. "I thought you would be busy running your empire," she said with a small, tired smile. "Even empires need coffee," he replied gently. "What happened?" "The bakery is closing," she said. "Rising rent. It happens." "I am sorry," he said sincerely. "You do not deserve this." "Deserve does not pay bills," she said quietly. "But thank you." He hesitated, watching her wrap a stack of mugs in old newspaper. "Lily," he began, "I am starting a community initiative to help small businesses and families get back on their feet. I could use someone who understands what it means to work hard and stay honest." She looked up, confused. "Are you offering me a job?" "I am offering you a chance," he said, "if you want it." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hid both gratitude and fear. "I do not want charity," she said. "I want to earn my place." "Then you already have," he said softly. Their eyes met, and for the first time, she saw not the CEO, but the man who had once watched her comfort his child in a park. "Come by the office tomorrow," he said. "We will talk details." As he left, Lily stood in the empty bakery, holding Maya close. Hope, fragile but bright, flickered to life inside her. For the first time in a long while, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe was finally on her side. The next morning, Lily stood outside the tall glass building downtown, clutching her small purse and trying to calm the storm of nerves in her chest. The reflection in the windows showed a young woman in a plain blouse and carefully brushed hair, trying her best to look confident, even though her hands trembled slightly. Inside, the lobby gleamed with polished marble floors and soft music playing in the background. Everything felt impossibly expensive, far removed from the small bakery she had just left behind. A receptionist greeted her warmly and directed her to the 22nd floor. When the elevator doors opened, Alexander was already waiting by the conference room. He was dressed simply in a navy shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled up, yet he still carried that air of quiet authority. "You came," he said, smiling faintly. "I was not sure you would." "I almost did not," she admitted honestly. "Places like this make me feel like I am in the wrong movie." "Then I hope today changes that," he said. He led her inside, where a few team members were already seated. "This is our new community development program," he explained. "We are trying to support small businesses that have been struggling after the recent economic downturn. We need someone who understands both sides of that story." Lily listened carefully as he described the plan, occasionally glancing at the people around the table. They were polite, well-dressed, but their smiles carried a trace of skepticism. When Alexander turned to her and asked, "What do you think?" she hesitated for a heartbeat, then spoke. "I think it is a good idea, but most people who need help will not trust a company like this, not right away." The room fell quiet. One of the executives frowned slightly. "And why is that?" Lily looked down for a moment before answering. "Because they have been promised things before, help that never came. They do not need fancy speeches, they need someone to show up, listen, and stay." Her voice was calm, but there was conviction behind it. Alexander watched her, the corner of his mouth lifting into a small smile. "Exactly," he said. "That is why she is here." The meeting ended, and as the others filed out, one of the assistants approached Lily with a gentle tone. "You really spoke from the heart," she said. "That is rare around here." Lily smiled shyly. "Thank you." When everyone was gone, Alexander walked her to his office. It was large but not cold, filled with books and photos of his son. "You did well today," he told her. "You spoke truth, and that is more valuable than you think." "I was afraid I said too much," she admitted. "No," he said, shaking his head. "You reminded them what this project is really about." He poured 2 cups of coffee from a small machine near his desk and handed her one. "So, Miss Sanders," he continued with a playful glint in his eyes, "would you like to work with us?" She blinked in surprise. "Work here? In this building?" "Yes," he said simply. "You will help us connect with the community partners. The pay is fair, the hours flexible, and there is childcare if you need it." The words nearly took her breath away. "I do not know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," he said gently. She looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude she could barely express. "Then yes," she said finally, a smile spreading across her face. "Thank you." "You earned this," he replied. As she left the office, clutching her new employment papers, she felt something she had not felt in years' pride. When she reached the street, she tilted her head toward the sky. The morning light broke through the clouds, painting the city in gold. For the first time since she could remember, Lily Sanders allowed herself to believe she had not just been lucky, she had been seen. And somewhere high above, Alexander watched her from the window, knowing that this was only the beginning of something far greater than either of them could yet understand. 2 weeks later, Lily adjusted to her new job faster than anyone expected. Each morning she arrived precisely on time, wearing neatly pressed clothes that she had ironed the night before after putting Maya to bed. Her workspace was small but bright, positioned near a window overlooking the downtown skyline. She spent her days organizing reports, making calls to local business owners, and listening to their struggles with empathy that could not be taught in any training manual. Her quiet professionalism began to draw attention. Some employees admired her warmth and discipline, while others, especially those who had doubted her at first, whispered about the CEO's unusual interest in her. One afternoon, while she was reviewing applications for small business grants, a tall woman in a sleek navy suit approached her desk. "You are Lily, right? I am Claire Bennett, Mr. Reed's executive coordinator. Her tone was polite but cool. He wants to see you in his office. Lily's heart quickened slightly. Is something wrong? I do not know, Claire said, with a small shrug that carried more meaning than words. When Lily entered the office, Alexander was standing near the window, his hands in his pockets, looking out over the city. Come in, he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were thoughtful when he turned toward her. How are you adjusting? I am doing my best, she replied honestly. It has been a lot to learn, but I am grateful for the opportunity. He nodded. You have done more than just adjust. You have improved the entire outreach program. The reports you wrote helped us identify problems we did not even know existed. She blinked in surprise, unsure how to respond. I was just doing what seemed right, she said quietly. Exactly, he replied. That is what makes the difference. He walked around his desk and handed her a folder. There is a new project proposal. I want you to oversee it directly. Me? She asked, startled. You have more experience than most of the people in this department. You know how to talk to people who have been ignored. I trust you. The sincerity in his tone made her chest tighten. Thank you, Mr. Reed, she said softly. I will not let you down. You have not yet, he said with a small smile. For a brief second, the air between them shifted. Something unspoken lingered there, fragile and real. Just then, the office door opened, and Claire entered holding a stack of documents. She stopped when she saw Lily, her expression unreadable. I did not realize you were in a meeting, she said smoothly. It is all right, Alexander replied. We are done here. As Lily left, she could feel Claire's eyes on her back, sharp and measuring. Later that evening, as she packed up to leave, one of the junior assistants approached her. Word of advice, the young woman said quietly. Be careful. People notice when someone gets too close to the boss. Lily smiled politely, though the comment left a small knot in her stomach. She had done nothing wrong, but she understood how envy worked in places like this. That night, she walked home through the soft glow of streetlights, pushing Maya's stroller and thinking about everything that had changed so quickly. A month ago, she had been struggling to keep the lights on. Now she was part of something bigger, something meaningful. When she reached her apartment, she took Maya in her arms and held her close. We are going to be okay, baby girl, she whispered. Meanwhile, across town, Alexander sat alone in his office long after everyone else had gone home. The city stretched before him like a map of lights. He thought about the way Lily had spoken that day, the honesty in her eyes, the calm way she handled every challenge. She reminded him of who he used to be before success hardened his edges. For reasons he could not explain, he found himself smiling. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the windows, the same kind of rain that had fallen the day they met. And somewhere between those raindrops and the quiet hum of the city, Alexander realized he was no longer just watching her life, he was becoming part of it. The following week brought a sense of calm that Lily had not felt in years. Her days began with the sound of Maya's laughter and ended with the soft glow of the city lights outside her apartment window. At work, she grew more confident, balancing her tasks while quietly inspiring others with her sincerity. One afternoon, Alexander invited her to join a meeting with several local business owners who had applied for funding from the new community program. You understand them better than anyone, he said. They will listen to you. She hesitated at first, then agreed. The meeting was held in a modest community center downtown, far from the corporate boardrooms she had once imagined CEOs belonged to. As they entered, the small crowd fell silent. People recognized Alexander from the news, but it was Lily who broke the tension. She smiled, shaking hands, asking names, and listening to stories of small dreams struggling to survive. A florist, a mechanic, a cafe owner, all spoke with worry and hope. She nodded at each one, her empathy genuine, her advice practical. When one woman began to cry while explaining how close she was to closing her family's shop, Lily reached across the table and held her hand. You are not alone, she said softly. We are going to make this work. Alexander watched the scene quietly from the side of the room. There was no pretense in her words, no attempt to impress anyone. She spoke from a place of real understanding. In that moment, he realized why people trusted her instantly. She had lived their reality. When the meeting ended, several participants came up to thank her personally, calling her Miss Lily, with smiles that carried both gratitude and admiration. On the drive back to the office, Alexander glanced at her. You were incredible in there, he said. You made them believe again. She blushed slightly. I just told them the truth. Sometimes people need to hear that they still matter. You do not give yourself enough credit, he said. You have a gift. She turned to the window, watching the city blur past. Maybe, she said, but gifts do not pay rent. He laughed softly, and for a brief moment, the tension of their different worlds vanished. That evening, as Lily left work, she saw Claire standing near the elevator. Mr. Reed speaks highly of you, Claire said, her voice calm but cool. That must feel nice. Lily sensed the edge beneath her words. He is kind to everyone, she replied. Kindness is rare in this world, especially from powerful men, Claire said, her tone sharp now. Be careful not to mistake it for something else. Lily's smile faded slightly. I am just doing my job, she said quietly. Claire's eyes lingered on her for a moment before she walked away, her heels echoing against the marble floor. The encounter left Lily unsettled, but she pushed the thought aside. She knew gossip could travel quickly in offices like this, and she refused to give it power. The next morning, she arrived early to find a small vase of daisies on her desk, the same kind Alexander had brought to the bakery weeks ago. A simple card rested beside it. Thank you for reminding us what compassion looks like. She smiled, touched more deeply than she wanted to admit. Later that day, Alexander stopped by her desk. Do you have a moment? He asked. She nodded, following him into the hallway. I wanted to say thank you, he said. The program has been a success because of you. It is a team effort, she said modestly, but thank you. Their eyes met for a long second, a quiet understanding passing between them. Then, from the far end of the hall, a voice interrupted. Dad. Alexander turned, surprised to see his son running toward him, escorted by his nanny. What are you doing here, buddy? He asked, kneeling down. You forgot my science project at home, the boy said breathlessly. Lily smiled warmly. You are quite the little scientist, huh? The boy grinned at her. You are the lady from the park. The moment froze, the past and present suddenly colliding. Alexander looked up, realizing this was the first time his two worlds had fully met. And as he glanced from his son's excited face to Lily's soft, startled smile, he felt something shift deep inside him, something that felt a lot like fate, returning to finish what it had started. For a moment, the hallway was filled with laughter as Alexander's son proudly showed Lily the small science project he had made. It was a cardboard volcano painted in uneven red streaks, complete with a little paper sign that read, Eruption Day. Lily knelt down, smiling warmly. That is amazing, she said. Did you make this all by yourself? Dad helped a little, the boy said proudly, glancing up at his father. But I did most of it. He did, Alexander said, his tone soft. And he has not stopped talking about it all week. The warmth in his voice carried something more, something Lily could feel even if she did not dare to name it. When the boy turned to run ahead, Alexander and Lily exchanged a glance that lasted just long enough to say everything words could not. Later that afternoon, Alexander's assistant mentioned that his son's school event was that weekend. They are inviting parents to watch the presentations, she said. Without thinking, he found himself saying, I will be there. On the day of the event, the school gymnasium buzzed with children's excitement and parents chatting over folding chairs. Lily was there too, though she had not expected to be. Her old neighbor, Mrs. Carter, taught at the same school and had invited her to sell baked goods at the fundraiser. She stood behind a small table filled with homemade cookies and muffins, her hair tied back neatly, Maya in a baby carrier against her chest. When Alexander walked in with his son, he froze for a brief moment at the sight of her. She looked up, equally surprised but smiling. You again, she said lightly. I could say the same, he replied, walking over. Selling cookies now? Just helping a friend, she said, and trying to raise a few extra dollars for the library fund. They must be lucky to have you, he said, picking up one of the cookies. These look professional. Careful, she teased. You might owe me for that one. He laughed quietly. Add it to my tab. The sound of children calling drew their attention as his son stood proudly on stage, holding his volcano model. When the teacher announced his name, the boy spotted Lily in the crowd and waved. That is her, he said loudly, pointing. The lady from the park. The room chuckled, and Lily blushed slightly as Alexander smiled, amused. He has a good memory, she whispered. He remembers kindness, Alexander said softly. When the event ended, Lily helped clean up, and Alexander stayed behind with his son, who was busy playing with friends. "Would you like a ride home?" he asked her as she packed up. "I have the car outside." "You and your rides," she said, half teasing, half uncertain. "It is just a ride, Lily," he said gently. "No conditions, no expectations." After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "All right, but only if you let me buy coffee next time." "Deal," he said. The drive was quiet but comfortable, filled with the hum of the road and the soft babbling of Maya in her carrier. When they stopped in front of her apartment, she turned to him. "Thank you again," she said sincerely, "for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it." "You do not have to thank me," he replied. "You have given me more perspective than anyone has in years." "Perspective," she repeated. "About what?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "About what really matters." She wanted to say something, but the words would not come. There was a quiet honesty in his voice that left her heart unguarded. "Good night, Mr. Reed," she said softly. "Good night, Lily," he replied, his tone warm. As she stepped out and disappeared up the stairs, he stayed for a few moments longer, watching the light from her window flicker on. In a world of polished meetings and endless deals, something about her simplicity reminded him of the kind of peace he had forgotten how to feel. That night, when he tucked his son into bed, the boy whispered sleepily, "Dad, do you like her?" Alexander smiled faintly, brushing his son's hair back. "I think she makes the world a little better," he said, "and that is rare." Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars, unaware that somewhere between two quiet hearts, something pure was beginning to grow. The next few weeks passed in a rhythm that felt strangely natural for both of them. Alexander found more reasons to visit the community office where Lily worked, often under the guise of checking progress reports or reviewing grant proposals. Each time he arrived, she greeted him with that same gentle smile that disarmed his carefully built composure. There was no pretense with her, no calculated charm. She spoke to him the same way she spoke to everyone else, and that sincerity made him forget the difference between their worlds. One morning, he brought his son along to the office, claiming it was a field trip to learn how businesses helped communities. The boy quickly found his way to Lily's desk, fascinated by the colorful pens and sticky notes. "Miss Lily, do you have kids who play with you here?" he asked curiously. Lily laughed softly. "Only my daughter, but she is still little. Maybe one day she will come visit and keep you company." "Can she come to my school fair?" he asked eagerly. Alexander started to interject, but Lily smiled. "Maybe," she said, "if your dad says it is all right." The boy looked at Alexander hopefully, and Alexander, trying to suppress a smile, said, "We will see." Watching them interact stirred something deep inside him, a quiet longing for the kind of normalcy he rarely had time to experience. Later that day, after his son left with the nanny, Alexander lingered by Lily's desk. "You are very good with him," he said. "He does not usually warm up to people that fast." "He is a good kid," she replied, organizing some papers. "Kids sense kindness. They know when someone sees them for who they are." "Maybe that is why he likes you," Alexander said quietly. "Because you do the same thing." Their eyes met briefly, and for a heartbeat, the air between them felt charged with something unspoken. But before either could say more, Claire appeared at the end of the hall, holding a folder. "Mr. Reed," she said smoothly, "the board is waiting for you." Her gaze flicked toward Lily, cool and assessing. "Miss Sanders, your department meeting has been moved to 3 o'clock. "Thank you," Lily said politely, though she felt the tension in the room like static. After Claire left, Alexander sighed softly. "Ignore her," he said. "She means well, but she is overly protective of the company." Lily gave a small smile. "It is all right. I am used to people not understanding why I am here." "They will," he said firmly. "You belong here, Lily. Do not let anyone make you doubt that." That night, back in her small apartment, Lily sat beside Maya's crib and thought about his words. "You belong here." It had been so long since anyone said something like that to her. She brushed a strand of hair from Maya's face and whispered, "Maybe things are changing, baby girl. Maybe this time, we are where we are meant to be." Meanwhile, across town, Alexander sat in his study, staring at the photo of his late wife that still hung on the wall. She had passed away years ago, leaving behind memories that time could not erase. But lately, when he thought about the future, it was Lily's face that came to mind, the way she listened, the way she smiled through her struggles, the way she brought warmth into every room she entered. He realized he was starting to look forward to each day, not because of business or success, but because of the chance to see her again. The thought frightened him as much as it comforted him. The next morning, he made a decision. He would invite Lily and her daughter to the upcoming company charity gala, not as an employee, but as guests. He told himself it was simply to recognize her contributions, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. He wanted her to see his world not as something unreachable, but as something she could step into. As he signed the formal invitation, his assistant asked, "Should I include a +1 for Miss Sanders?" He smiled faintly. "No," he said. "She already has someone, her daughter." And as the envelope was sealed and sent, Alexander could not help but wonder if this simple gesture might become the turning point where kindness began to feel a lot like destiny. The invitation arrived on a Thursday afternoon, slipped neatly between Lily's paperwork as she sorted through files. At first, she thought it was another business document, but when she opened it, the elegant gold lettering caught her off guard. "You and your guest are cordially invited to the annual Reed Foundation Charity Gala." Her breath caught slightly as she read the note inside, handwritten in a familiar, steady script. "For everything you have done, and everything you are, Alexander." She stared at it for a long moment, unsure whether to smile or worry. A gala was a world she did not belong to. She had seen pictures of events like that: chandeliers, expensive gowns, polished laughter that hid judgment. But when she looked at the small photograph of Maya pinned to her desk, she thought of what it might mean for her daughter to see her mother standing tall among people who had everything. That night, after putting Maya to bed, Lily pulled out her only formal dress from the back of the closet. It was simple, pale blue, slightly faded at the seams, but still elegant in its quiet way. She mended a small tear on the hem and told herself it would have to do. On the evening of the gala, she arrived early, holding Maya's tiny hand as they stepped through the grand entrance of the city's largest hotel. The chandelier above glittered like captured starlight, and the soft murmur of conversation filled the marble hall. Heads turned as she entered, not because of the dress she wore, but because of the grace in her simplicity. Alexander was speaking with a group of investors when he noticed her. For a moment, the noise around him faded. Lily stood near the doorway, her daughter beside her, both looking slightly lost yet impossibly radiant. He excused himself and crossed the room. "You made it," he said warmly. "You look—" He paused, searching for a word that would not sound rehearsed. "You look wonderful." "Thank you," she said, smiling shyly. "We almost did not come. I was not sure this kind of place was for us." "It is exactly for you," he said quietly. "You have done more for this company and this program than anyone else here tonight." Maya tugged at her mother's hand. "Mommy, is he your boss?" Alexander crouched slightly, smiling at the little girl. "Tonight, I am just your friend," he said. She giggled, hiding behind Lily's dress. As the evening went on, Lily found herself speaking with several guests about the community program. Her sincerity and intelligence drew people in, her words simple but powerful. "Real change," she said to one group of donors, "does not happen from the top. It starts with listening." Alexander watched from a distance, pride in his eyes. For once, this event felt different, less like a performance, and more like a reminder of why he had started his foundation in the first place. But not everyone was pleased. Across the room, Claire stood near the champagne table, her expression unreadable as she whispered something to another executive. "She does not belong here," one of them murmured. Claire said nothing, but her eyes followed Lily with quiet calculation. Later, as the lights dimmed and the music softened, Alexander approached Lily again. "Would you dance with me?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "I have not danced in years." "Then let us change that," he said. He offered his hand, and after a moment, she took it. They moved slowly across the polished floor, her steps uncertain at first but steadying with his guidance. For a moment, the room disappeared, the noise, the whispers, the world beyond that moment. It was just them, two souls from different lives moving to the same rhythm. "You were right," she said softly. "About what?" he asked. "About people appearing in our lives for a reason." He smiled, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then I am glad fate was paying attention that day in the park." When the song ended, applause rippled faintly through the crowd, but neither of them noticed. Somewhere in the quiet between heartbeats, something had shifted completely. Neither knew what would come next, but both felt it: something fragile, something true, something that felt like hope. The following morning, sunlight poured through the wide office windows of the Reed Foundation, touching everything in soft gold. The gala had ended, but its echoes still lingered in everyone's minds. News outlets praised the event's sincerity, and for once, Alexander did not care about the headlines. He cared only about the quiet conversation he had shared with Lily as the night faded into morning. They had stood outside under the stars, both too shy to call it what it was, something that felt like the beginning of everything. But as life often does, the next day brought its share of challenges. When Lily arrived at work, whispers drifted through the hall. She could feel eyes following her, judgment wrapped in polite smiles. On her desk, a printed article from a gossip column lay open. Mysterious woman seen, dancing with tech magnate, Alexander Reed, single mother or new flame. Her heart sank. She had worked so hard to be taken seriously, and now her name was being reduced to a rumor. She closed the magazine quickly, trying to steady herself, but Claire appeared at her desk moments later. "Rough morning?" Claire asked, her tone smooth as glass. "These things happen when you step into the spotlight." "I did nothing wrong," Lily said calmly. "Of course not," Claire replied, her lips curling into a small smile. "But perception is everything, Miss Sanders. People talk." Lily met her gaze, her voice steady. "Then let them talk. I am not ashamed of being seen with someone who treats people with respect." With that, she stood, gathering her papers, refusing to shrink into the shadow of gossip. When Alexander heard about the article, he stormed into Claire's office, his tone controlled but sharp. "Who leaked this?" Claire straightened, feigning innocence. "Reporters do what they do, sir. You cannot control the narrative." "No," he said, his jaw tightening, "but I can control how we respond." He left the room before she could speak again. That afternoon, he found Lily in the break area, staring out the window. "You read it," he said quietly. "Everyone did," she admitted. "It will pass," he said. "I promise." She shook her head softly. "You do not have to protect me, Alexander. I survived worse than gossip." "Maybe," he said, "but you should not have to face it alone." She turned toward him, and for a moment, her composure wavered. "You are a good man," she said, "but this world you live in, it chews people like me up." "Then maybe it is time to change the world," he said firmly. The next week, Alexander held a press conference, not to defend himself but to redefine the story. Standing at the podium, he spoke with quiet conviction. "Our foundation's success is built on empathy," he said. "Miss Lily Sanders is one of the most capable, compassionate individuals I have ever met. She reminds us all what humanity in business looks like." The room filled with murmurs, flashes of cameras, but Alexander did not flinch. When it ended, he stepped away from the microphones, knowing some would still misunderstand, but Lily's integrity deserved to be seen in truth, not rumor. Later that evening, as the city lights glimmered below his office, Lily appeared at the door. "You did not have to do that," she said softly. "I wanted to," he replied. "You reminded me what all of this is supposed to mean." She smiled faintly. "You did not have to risk your reputation for me." "It was never a risk," he said. "It was a choice." Outside, rain began to fall again, soft and familiar, just like the night they met. As they stood there, the city's noise faded into a hush. Lily glanced at him, eyes shining. "You know," she said, "that day in the park I thought you were just another stranger passing by. And I thought kindness was something people no longer noticed," he said quietly. "I was wrong." She reached for his hand, and he did not hesitate. For a long moment, they simply stood there, two worlds finally meeting without barriers or fear. Down the hallway, a child's laughter echoed his son playing with Maya in the office daycare, their voices blending in innocent joy. Alexander looked at Lily, smiling. Maybe fate knew exactly what it was doing after all. She nodded, tears glinting but her smile steady. "Sometimes," she whispered, "the smallest act of kindness changes everything." Outside, the rain fell heavier, but in that moment, it sounded like music, the kind only hearts that had been broken and healed could truly hear. And as the lights dimmed over the city, it was clear that both of them had finally found what they had been missing all along. Not perfection, not wealth, but peace, and the kind of love that makes the world gentle again. In this heartwarming cinematic tale of love, kindness, and redemption, a struggling single mother crosses paths with a powerful CEO, in a moment that changes both their lives forever. From a simple act of compassion in a park to an unexpected bond built on humanity and trust, their journey unfolds across quiet battles, gentle hope, and the rediscovery of what truly matters. Inspired by the best millionaire stories that celebrate empathy over wealth, this story reminds us that success without heart means nothing. As their worlds collide, the CEO learns that even in a world driven by money and ambition, love can still rewrite destiny. If you are searching for emotional millionaire stories filled with transformation, forgiveness, and destiny, this will touch your soul. Through rain, soaked nights, whispered promises, and the innocence of two children who unknowingly unite their parents, this narrative captures the essence of modern fairy tales. It is one of those rare millionaire stories where power meets humility and changes everything. Watch how compassion turns into connection, and how two lives once separated by class find harmony through kindness. This is not just another tale about love. It is one of the most inspiring millionaire stories about healing, grace, and the simple truth that being human is the greatest gift of all.